Hello guys, and welcome back to Force Collector, and today we are taking a look at the Renegade LE from Ultrasabers. And yes, this is a crossguard lightsaber, and boy did that create some controversy the first time Kylo Ren appeared in that very first Force Awakens trailer and debuted the first ever crossguard lightsaber. Everyone went nuts. Not everyone was a fan of it. There are some haters of the crossguard lightsaber, but to me it's an interesting take on the lightsaber, and I can't wait to see the actual movie to see just how Kylo Ren is going to use it. Now, with this particular lightsaber, this is a beast. You know, I called the Crimson Scorpion a beast. This is the beast's bigger brother. This is the alpha of lightsabers. This is a lightsaber that just weighs a ton. This by far is the heaviest lightsaber in my collection, and it's just meant, to me anyway, for pure power, powerful strikes, great guards, and the ability to use the side blades as both a defensive and an offensive method. Now, a lot of people say, you know, that's not how you would use like a broadsword or a great sword. That's not what the sides are for. They're not for defense. When it comes right down to it and you're in a battle, you're going to take any advantage you can get. So if that means using these awesome side blades, then so be it. Now, I'm going to pull the camera back in a little bit just so you guys can get an idea of how big this thing really is. But let's actually talk about the hilt a little bit, and I'll try picking this thing up and try to get it in frame as much as possible, at least from this angle. And right off the bat, we'll start with the bottom. It's got this great kind of spiked end to it at the very end of the pommel, which again gives it that feeling of power, something you can use to bash your opponent with, you know, maybe with an overhead strike. And you have this great intricate design on the actual hilt itself. Feels good to hold. Definitely a two-handed saber. This can be a little rough on your wrist and your hand if you're not careful with this thing, just due to the weight. Of course, we have a button here, and this particular button is lighted red with the rest of the lightsaber. A little introduction on the technical specs of this lightsaber. I got this lightsaber with a obsidian soundboard and red LEDs just to kind of match up with what Kylo Ren's lightsaber is going to be as a Sith, or the Knights of Ren, or whatever you want to say. If I could go back to Comic-Con, kind of go back in time a couple months ago, I probably would have opted to buy the Emerald Driver board just so I could do different colors with this thing. But for what it is, it's still a very cool lightsaber. Going up kind of the middle here, we have the cross section, the crossguard section, with, of course, the polycarbonate blades on both sides. The shortest, I believe, that Ultrasabers offers. And I think that is an option to order replacements on, which is very cool. And then, of course, we go up and we have the emitter here out to the blade. And again, I'm going to pull the camera out in a second, but let's turn this bad boy on just so you can hear this thing. This thing just screams. And I should mention that the Obsidian board in this is a V4, which gives you different sound bank options. And I think I'm using Dark Star on this one, but let's turn it on. Listen to that thing hum. Now, as far as, is there any shortcomings to this thing, in my opinion? Maybe a couple. The one is the fact that you can really only have the flash on clash, and I'm not sure off the top of my head if you can order flash on clash or the lock-up flashing lights for these. You probably can, but I do wish that all of the lights here actually did the lock-up motion when you hit it, and they all kind of flashed on clash. That would be really great. It still looks cool and still looks intimidating on the side of this, but overall it would be cool to see all of them kind of flash. The only other major, I can't even really say major disappointment about it, is I wish that it had separate lighting. If you look in the trailer for Kylo Ren, when he turns on his lightsaber, this first part lights up and then the second parts come out. And I think I got to imagine that that is probably next on Ultrasabers' list to do in terms of these crossguard lightsabers, is to have a separate ignition with this lighting and this lighting to really capture the look and feel of the movie. But overall, not a huge disappointment. just something I would definitely like to see in the future. So let's go ahead and pull the camera back a little bit and just get a huge general idea of exactly what this lightsaber looks like in its full glory. Alright, so as you can see, this blade is huge. Like I said, this is the alpha. This is the beast to the beast. And again, just a really powerful, huge lightsaber that you can use to disarm your opponents, to defend against. And obviously, you do have to be aware of the fact that you could cut your own hands off potentially with the side blades. So it brings a new strategy to everything, because not only could you cut your hands off, you could also cut your opponent's hand off, or you could use this to get into their body, almost like a reverse hammer, if you will. But yeah, as you can see, this thing is pretty huge, and I actually have to find a different spot in my room, in my house, to actually mount this thing to a wall, just because it does take up a good amount of space. So keep that in mind if you're going to pick this up. If you like to display your lightsabers, this is a little harder to store, and it's especially even harder to take around and travel with. You know, I have a bag that'll hold up to 4 or 5 lightsabers. This has to go separately just because of its look. So it's not necessarily a easy lightsaber to transfer around. If you're going to a Star Wars premiere or you're going to a Comic-Con, keep that in mind. It's not easy to lug this thing around, especially if you're not in the mood to lug a lightsaber around. This may not be one you want to bring. When I did pick it up at Comic-Con, I did enjoy lugging around just because people were really blown away by it. They were quite impressed by it. And I mean, it's a menacing sword, and when you get into a duel with someone and you bring this out for the first time, they definitely kind of feel the intensity that this thing brings. So let's turn this thing on a little bit. That is nice. And bright. Now, one other thing I will say before we end this review is that I am typically not a fan of pointed polycarbonate blades. And the reason is, you know, it's just a personal preference. Growing up with the Star Wars movies, I never really looked at a lightsaber and saw a point to it. It was just kind of a circular, oval, round to it, and that was it. I will say that's probably one of the biggest things that bothers me about Star Wars Rebels is the fact that it has, the lightsabers have a point. They seem so thin. They look a little different, especially compared to what you've seen in the Clone Wars. But, with that being said, this is one of the few lightsabers that I actually enjoy having a pointed tip on. For whatever reason, it just adds to the menacing look of what this Ultrasaber Renegade is. And again, if I could change anything else about this lightsaber, and this is something I can probably do at any point when the funds are available to me, is changing these, because these are the regular standard rounded shape, is changing these to pointed and just giving the whole thing that menacing look. It's probably the only time that I would personally suggest getting the sharp pointed tips on this thing. Just got to be careful that you don't poke your eye out. So overall, Is this lightsaber for you? Obviously, it's going to depend on, one, if you like the crossguard lightsaber, which I do, which is the one reason I picked it up, and two, what your dueling methods are. Again, if you're looking for a lightsaber that you want to spin around, that you're looking more for flash than you are, I guess, substance, this is not the lightsaber for you. This is a heavy-duty, heavy weapon that you'd want to use in combat. And there's really not a ton you can do for spinning unless it's some kind of power move or power combo that you're bringing into it. I wouldn't recommend it for spinning unless you have strong wrists, because you could potentially hurt yourself, you could pull something. And you do have to be careful because it is a huge hilt. And if you're careless with this thing, you could bash yourself in the face with it or someone else pretty easily. So you have to put those thoughts into perspective. If you like the crossguard lightsaber, this is definitely a cool suggestion. I love this way more than the Hasbro Kylo Ren lightsaber that came out. There's no comparison. This totally destroys it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed my little review of the crossguard lightsaber.